Thanks. Hey, y'all. Give yourselves a round of applause for supporting creativity in Chattanooga. And let's hear it for Cody and Chris and Sully and all the volunteers. And to Crabtree Farms, please give them a round of applause. Just keep applauding until I'm awake. Just wake me up, please. Who gets up this early in the morning? Holy shit. Thank you all for coming. I'm glad that you're here. Hi, that's who I am. I'm glad to be here at Creative Mornings. I'm glad that you're all here as well. My name is Jeff Greenspan, and I'm here to talk about everything I know about not knowing. As Cody said, I've had a... Oh, okay, some people are excited about not knowing anything. You're in the right spot. I've done a bunch of projects that I'm really lucky that were kind of liked by a lot of people, and I promise you, I didn't know what I was doing when I did them. And if I did, they wouldn't have gotten done. So I meet a lot of creative people who are kind of stuck because they don't know how to maybe get a project finished, and that keeps them from starting. So if it's cool with you, I hope it is because you're here sitting down, I'm going to share with you some projects and then go over like what I didn't know and all the obstacles that would have kind of kept those things from happening if I did know what I was doing. So just a little background. I used to be the chief creative officer of BuzzFeed. Do you guys know this internet toilet? Yeah, okay, very good. Yeah, it's not good. They're known for listicles. These are articles in the form of a list, you know, like 32 ways you know you're a virgin or something like that. Yeah. I got fired from there. This isn't even why, but I tried to publish Schindler's Listicle. 23 adorable Jews you won't believe survived. Okay, so it's cool. All right. People are like, we see his nose. He can make that joke. It's cool. All right, that's cool. Before that, I used to work at Facebook. Sorry, Meta. And before that, I worked at a bunch of ad agencies who owned a bunch of logos. And one of the agencies I worked at was called Saatchi & Saatchi, and I worked on the Cheerios account. Oh, here it is. Here's Cheerios. And I was asked to write a headline for all 5 Cheerios flavors for a billboard, which you really shouldn't do. Each one is its own brand, but that's a different conversation. So anyway, and so the line that I came up with was, only the holes taste the same. And my boss really liked it, and General Mills really liked it, and the ad agency, the ad agency really liked it, and this was about to go into print, and we were on a call with General Mills, and one of the representatives there was like, we did some testing, and it turns out it's really not about taste, it's about flavor. So maybe we could change the line to only the holes have the same flavor. Nobody had a problem with the holes. I want to be clear. I mean, it was 2001. The internet was kind of young. There was no social media, and we hadn't yet sexualized honey wheat holes, And so after a prolonged debate about taste and flavor, the ad became this: there's a Cheerios for everyone in the family. And that's when I realized nothing can get done in an ad agency. And I was like, if I want to make cool things or make things that people might like, I'm going to have to kind of make them on my own. So I started it was this ad that made me realize, okay, maybe I should take the things that I've learned that got me into the ad agencies, was how to use images and words and manipulate the media, and how can you do things that are more representative of my own voice or my own sense of humor. So I started kind of experimenting with making projects. And the first project I did was called the Bush Booth. And so this was a long time ago. This was when George W. Bush was running for re-election. It was after 9/11. And all he was really talking about in the media was kind of warmongering. And I remember saying to a friend, I go, wouldn't it be cool if we could just kind of shut him up? And there were some violent ways we considered doing that. But then we're like, oh, maybe there's a more creative way to do that. And I was like, we only kind of ever see George Bush talking. We never really get to hear or experience him or any of our politicians really listening. So I was like, what if we, built a 7-foot soundproof booth and had footage of George W. Bush just listening, not speaking, looping on a video. And you can go into this booth and I'll play some of it. There he is. This is very, very old. This is how long ago this footage was. So you'd be encouraged to kind of talk to George, and he would just kind of sit there and kind of every once in a while he vocalizes something. So we got to work to start building this booth. And what we realized pretty quickly is we weren't engineers. So about 3 or 4 booths fell on top of me and my friend as we were building them. But we finally got this booth built. We didn't really know what we were doing. And the booth was built and it was done. And I was like, okay, now let's just get some footage of George W. Bush listening. It was pretty hard to find. This was in the infant days of YouTube, so there wasn't a lot of, publicly accessed video that you could grab. Oh, wait. Yeah, he's good. Sorry, dude. And so we were like, oh, fuck, now we've got this booth in my living room. If you've ever been in a New York City apartment, there's really no room for a 7-foot Bush booth, all right? So, and I was like, oh, what are we going to do now? We don't have any of this footage, And then it turned out a friend of a friend's girlfriend worked at NBC, and she heard about what we were doing. She's like, every time we interview, when we cut to the press, there's a camera on him. We just don't use it. I can get you tons of footage of him just listening. And we're like, oh, cool, we're in business. So we got the video. And then we're like, okay, now we've got the video and we got the booth. Where are we going to plug this in? We didn't know, we didn't think it through, which is great. Because if we thought through any of this, we wouldn't have started. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll find some sympathetic store in New York that will let us plug it in and put it on the sidewalk. As I say it now, it sounds batshit crazy. It's like, no, we're not going to let you do any of this. And then it turned out there was an improv theater in New York City called The Pit, the People's Improv Theater, and they heard that I was kind of stuck. And they were like, hey, you can put it in our lobby for a week until you figure out what you're going to do with it. Oh, yeah. And so we put it in the lobby for a week, and then the owner of the improv theater was like, people love this. They're lining up. They're screaming at him, Can we have it for another week? And it became 3 weeks, and it turns out somebody who went to go see the Bush booth at the theater, owned a real legitimate gallery. And they were like, hey, can you put this in our gallery? And then it wound up in another gallery, and then it got written about in the press. And before you knew it, an art collective in Chicago was like, can you send us the spec? Like we had specs. Can you send us the specs so we can build one in Chicago? And then eventually someone built one in Amsterdam. And at one point we had like a franchise of these. We had like one running in Amsterdam, we had one running in Chicago, we had running in New York. And I share that even though I don't have a lot of visuals for that project, just because that really taught me that if I worried about any of these things at the beginning, how to distribute this idea, how to showcase this idea, how to execute this idea, I absolutely would not have started. But the first step forward was let's start action. And when you start action, at least I have found, and by the way, I'm absolutely not an optimist at all, but I find the world kind of conspires to help you in weird cosmic ways. I can't believe it's coming out of my mouth. Because who would have thought that a friend of a friend would have worked at NBC, or that someone would have heard that we were stuck and we needed a place to put this thing and give us their lobby of their improv theater. But things kind of came together because I think people saw me and my friends kind of putting energy into something. And the same thing happened with the next project, which was called the Hipster Traps. I put bear traps around New York City that were baited with things that hipsters found irresistible. By the way, New York City had a huge hipster infestation. I hear that there's been some in Chattanooga too, right? Like rich people dressing like poor people, right? So we put these all around New York City. And this one is baited with a Pabst Blue. Oh, wait, is that me? No, that's a fly. All right. I was like, that's pretty good. All right. There's a Pabst Blue Ribbon, Fixie bike chain, Wayfarer sunglasses, American Spirits, of course, a Holga camera. And we by the way, they're made of cardboard. They look incredibly real, but I found somebody on Craigslist who built them for $50 each. So again, who would have known? I went to Craigslist for something very different. But I was like, oh, there's a community section. Oh, all right, cool. I didn't know. And so we put these all around New York City. And they got, a lot of press attention. They were in Time magazine. They were on the front of the New York City commuter paper. This is such a big story that it pushed the nuclear crisis in Japan to the sidebar. We got ripped off by Hot Topic. And then we sent them a cease and desist, which was pretty cool. It was the first time I had a lawyer. That was pretty hot. But it all started because of this picture. And so when me and my friend Hunter Fine, who created the hipster traps with me, when we first put them out, we were like, well, what will happen? Like, will people even notice them? Will people trip over them? Will people steal? We had like $100 worth of props in there. There's a Holga camera in there. Like, will people steal the props? Will people kick it and destroy it? What will happen? So we chained this one on the corner of, I think, 7th Street and Avenue B or A, and we kind of just hung out for a little while. And this guy was like walking by and kind of looking at it and looking at us. He saw us like chain it there, and he comes up to us. He goes, "Is that a hipster trap?" And we were thrilled. I was like, "Oh, advertising actually taught me something. How do you communicate something visually? Great." We were like, totally. And we were thrilled because up until that point, hipster traps were just, you know, a file on our computer. And now it was like something in the real world. I'm just making sure I'm good on time. And he's like, well, is it an ad? And I was like, no, it's just something for the street. He goes, oh, cool. Can I take a picture of it? And we're like, sure. So he took a picture of it. This is before, you know, social media. We exchanged email addresses. And he went on his way. And me and my friend Hunter were like, I guess we should go home and figure out Tumblr so we can archive these images. So we went home and we're figuring out Tumblr. It was a while ago. And it's been like 4 hours since we met that guy on the street. And we get an email from him. He's like, hey, man, I really liked your hipster traps, and the internet likes it too. He had put it on Reddit, and at that point, it had 250,000 views just in a few hours. By the next morning, it had 1 million. So I share this project because, you know, if someone had tasked us with figuring out how to distribute this idea, that's a big thing. I'm like at ad agencies when I work for them. They're like, great, good idea, but how will it be shared? How will we know it'll get the KPIs? Or how do we know it'll be, you know, liked? You don't know. We didn't know. We just kind of moved with our gut, and people kind of came out to help us. We didn't know how we were going to build it. We bought the props before we had the traps built. And then we found someone on Craigslist. How would we distribute the idea? Just run into a stranger on the street, I guess. And the same kind of thing happened with this next project, which was called the tourist lanes. I had divided up New York City sidewalks into 2 lanes because I was finding it problematic to walk around. If it's cool, I'm just going to share a quick video about how the project kind of took off in the media. Okay, so here we are. We're doing the first run. If you've been to New York City, you probably know that New Yorkers walk fast and non-New Yorkers gawk and stop and point at things and get in your way. Oh, that works really well. There's a line, it's pretty straight. So, and then we kind of enforced the lanes.
Excuse me, sir. New York City resident?
No, I know.
No? Oh, can you go in the tourist lane?
Tourist lane, please.
So you can take pictures and go as slow as you want?
Just stay on the right-hand side. Tourist
New Yorker?
left, not yet.
New York City? Yeah, let's go to the New Yorker lane. Trying to speed it up. You can live your rapid lifestyle. Susie, ma'am, if you're gonna just stand, can you stand in the tourist lane? That's for slow people. Thanks. You look like an artsy guy. You're definitely from New York City, right? Yep, stay in the New York lane. Excuse me, sir.
Transportation, sir. If you're a tourist, please stay on the left-hand side. We're trying to increase traffic flow right now.
I walk pretty fast, though.
No,
Sorry.
it doesn't matter. Statistically, you walk slow.
And what if you want to take a
Statistically, you're slow. New York City resident? Stay to your right. You're quick. You're a New York City resident, definitely. Keep it up.
When I started that project and just going out at 2 in the morning and putting these lanes on the street, I had no idea that Improv Everywhere, I don't know if you know these guys, but they're a fantastic group of people who do a lot of street theater. They got inspired by the idea, and they're like, hey, what if we enforce these lanes? What if we got a whole bunch of actors, and what if we gave you security so you could do it on Fifth Avenue and not all over the Lower East Side? But, like, I never would have, I never would have known that was going to happen. I never would have known that it would have gone viral. I didn't know how to distribute any of these ideas. All I knew was I'm having trouble walking. This seems like a creative solution. I'm going to move forward with it, and whatever happens, happens. When I started putting out those lanes, I don't know if you remember in the video, it was kind of a shitty, terrible line, and I was like, oh, it already kind of is being shared. I didn't get to perfect it, but I learned a lesson. There is no testing in street art. So the next project that I worked on with some friends was called the Snowden statue. I had made worked with an artist to have a bust of Edward Snowden. We all, please, yes, okay. All right, if you don't know who Edward Snowden is, he uncovered the fact, or he released. He was a NSA. He was working for the NSA as a contractor, and he released a trove of information about how our government is kind of spying on you, on us. So we made a statue of him, and we cemented it on top of a pillar in the middle of Brooklyn, and in a park in Brooklyn, and that's what it looks like up close. And I'll just play this really quick.
An eye-catching bronze bust of NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden drew a crowd in Brooklyn's Fort Greene Park, many even stopping to take pictures.
I think it's great. I think it's art.
The people behind the bust, 2 artists and a sculptor who want to remain anonymous, documented their project on video. They spent a year designing this 100-pound piece of art as a tribute to Snowden, who's charged with espionage for leaking classified information in 2013.
Is he a patriot or a traitor? And I don't have a really good answer to that question, but I was intrigued by people just saying, hey, like, we need to acknowledge this guy.
The artists unveiled it before dawn on top of the prison ship Martyrs Monument, which marks the graves of thousands who died aboard British prison ships during the Revolutionary War.
We've gone to great lengths to make sure that aesthetically, the item that we're placing there is honoring the aesthetics that are already in place.
The discreet operation was illegal. The man who documented it all spoke to us by phone.
Sometimes you have to, break the law to get your point out.
By midday, the sculpture was covered in blue tarp and removed by the Parks Department. You can see NYPD detectives here behind me. This is now technically a crime scene. Investigators will be looking for DNA and other clues to find out who's behind this. The idea of a crime angering some in the crowd, just proving the display wasn't a total bust.
Who decided to take it down? Who decided that we couldn't see that? That's art. It should be allowed to be seen.
The Parks Department would only say any unapproved artwork here is illegal and handed that sculpture over to the NYPD. So far, no arrests. In Fort Greene Park, Lori Bordenaro, News 4.
So our goal was to try to get the media news cycle to actually consider that his actions may have been heroic, and we were able to get that done. But before it got taken away, this happened. This is from Reddit. There now exists a video of a U.S. government employee literally using the head of an American eagle, which is a symbol for America's freedom, as a foothold while throwing a tarp over the image of a man who is fighting for government transparency. If I saw this in the street, I'd assume it was a bunch of drama students doing street theater and roll my eyes at the heavy-handedness of it all. You cannot write this shit. So after it got taken away, never would have known this would have happened, but it got another news cycle that some artists had came by and scanned it 3-dimensionally before it was taken away, and they reinstalled it as a hologram. Yeah, and people were leaving flowers, and it became kind of a big story. It wound up on Rachel Maddow, but then has anybody seen... That's an evidence sticker on his forehead, by the way. Has anybody seen the movie The Big Lebowski? So when he goes, get me Kubi, get me Counselor, get me Ron Kubi, he wants as a lawyer. So Ron Kubi approached us to be our lawyer. And he's like, I can get you boys your statue back if you want it. And I was like, Really? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm a media whore. I'd like to be on TV. Oh, you cut that out. Don't. He's litigious. He's a good guy. I like Ron Kuby. I love him. But he got us a statue back, and it wound up in the Brooklyn Museum, which was a really wonderful thing to have happen because it's a prestigious museum. But it all started, I share this again because my friend and I, we were like, hey, we have this idea. How can we provoke people to think about Edward Snowden in a different way? And we thought we needed something visual and theatrical and something that had some risk behind it. So we were committed to getting the statue made. It's a whole other talk about how many meth head sculptors we went through before we found someone who was willing to do this at a price that we could afford. But once we started building it, we were like, shit, where are we going to put it? Like, we already kind of had started with a sculptor, even though we didn't have a space. And then I swear to you, this happened. Like, the universe. I can't believe I'm saying things like that. Stop it, David. He's right, though. I was online, just looking at stuff that was happening in New York, and there was this kid who got arrested for riding his bicycle on a sidewalk or something, and they took his picture of him sitting on this pillar. And I found who he was, and I'm like, where was the pillar? I'm like, I'm sorry about you getting arrested, but where is that pillar? It's perfect. This pillar is part of a monument honoring those who lost their lives in the Revolutionary War. What a perfect place to install a statue of someone fighting for the rights that this country was kind of founded upon. So it was kind of perfect. And there was a whole bunch of accidents like that that happened through this project and all the other projects I shared so far that made these things kind of happen and get shared widely around the world and get seen. And this is me and my partner who did the statue together. So again, we just moved forward not knowing where it would be installed. We had no idea that artists would come and reinstall it as a hologram. We had no idea that a famous lawyer would make a scene out of us having our statue taken away or that it would wind up in the Brooklyn Museum. The last project I'd like to share with you really quick is the Capture Project. This is people in prison drawing portraits of people we feel should be in prison, which are the heads of corporations around. These are the Koch brothers. So there's the Koch brothers have committed a series of crimes. I can explain them later. This is Rex Tillerson, who was the head of Exxon, and then he became our Secretary of State. This is drawn by a guy who was serving 10 years for possession of a firearm. And this is the head of Nestle. And these are all, they were all displayed with rap sheets. This is the crimes committed by Pfizer. This is the CEO of Pfizer. And this is drawn by Joseph Scaro, who is serving 4 years for receiving stolen goods. And so this project imagined that what if the heads of these corporations were actually personally responsible for the crimes that these companies commit against our society. So here's the head of Chevron, here's the head of Monsanto, and this project got, again, a lot of attention throughout the world. We made a book of these. We self-published it. We made 1,000. We sold that in a week. We made $13,000 in profit, and we gave all the money to Bernie Sanders. Cool. All right. Some people are not applauding. You'll learn. It's that's cool. There'll be no more water soon. And then the project actually got to tour. We got to move these around the country. But I share this project also because this originally was created for a client. We were working on a TV show called Years of Living Dangerously, which was I forgot directed by James Cameron. Look at me, like who was it? Such a dick. And he was like, hey, he wasn't, but his team was like, hey, we want to do something on the social feeds to promote the show, but we don't want to use clips of the show. So what can you create visually that would get people excited? And when we watched the previews of the show, every episode, the whole show was about climate change and the crimes committing against our climate and our environment. And in every episode, somebody said, if people did what these companies are doing, they'd be in jail. And we were like, oh, that's the truth of this thing. Let's make this project. So we submitted this idea as an idea for them to make. And, half the people were like, yeah, let's make it. And the other half, the lawyers, were like, you want us to work with murderers? We're like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they're like, absolutely not. And like, so we retained the intellectual property. We made this idea. We never would have known that it would have kind of traveled around the world, that it would have gotten into galleries and stuff if we had tried to start. So as I wrap this up, this was me back in New York City during the pandemic, or as I call it, the Greenspan pandemic. And at that time, I created something called Quarantine, where I offered people 15 to 30 minutes. This is back when there was no comedy wasn't. I'm a comedian, and in New York, all the clubs were closed. There was no place to go. Everything was locked down. We actually wore like double masks. That's why I live here now. And I was like, oh, let me see if I can give people 15 to 30 minutes of my time to help them with whatever creative projects they're stuck with during this downtime. Because I had some projects that had kind of been shared widely, and it kind of took off. It got written up by fast companies, so I wound up booked all the time. And I heard from creative people all over the world, and I heard what their anxieties and stresses were, and they mostly fell into two camps primarily. How do I get started? How will it finish? How will I know it will be successful? And I try to show them some of the projects that I just shared with you. I'm like, you won't know. You just got to move with that gut. If you're inspired to make something, don't worry. Maybe no one will see it. You'll still learn something making it. And this project actually got copied by this guy. This guy made another. I think it's funny that he has a creator T-shirt, but he's like ripping off somebody. I think that's kind of funny. So I think that's kind of funny. But I listened to a lot of creative people's anxieties. So again, one was like, how will I know this will get seen? And I would say, don't let that stop you from starting. And the other two kind of issues most creative people had were, what if it's no good? What if no one likes it? And it felt like a lot of people needed permission to make something. They were like, well, who am I to make something? Who the hell am I to put lines on the middle of a sidewalk? I remember. Do you guys know Gary Vaynerchuk? Cut this part out too. I used to kind of know him, and I remember when he was like, "Hey, what are you working on?" And I told him about the Snowden statue like a week before it came out. He's like, "Do you have permission to do this?" I'm like, "Oh no, absolutely not." He's like, "So you're going to deface like a war memorial for your own agenda?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, please cut this out. He's like, what gives you the right to do that? I go, nah, I don't know if I do have the right to do it, but I feel I'm going to do it. He's like, I don't think this is going to be received the way that you think it will be received. He's like, I'm from Belarus, and if you do this in Belarus, they'd cut your hands off. I'm like, you're from Jersey, dude. What are you fucking talking about? I think he was like technically born in Belarus. But that was a risk. What if everyone hated it? What would happen? But luckily that didn't happen. I mean, I didn't show you the projects that people hated, so I did stack the deck. But I think my hope is that by seeing these projects and walking through a little bit of how I didn't know how they were going to work out, or I didn't even know how to really start, even though I started anyway, it's that, all the fun and all the interesting things happen in the unknown places. And I work at ad agencies a lot, and there's this real desire to know everything. What will the budget be? What will happen? What's every point of distribution? How will we talk about it online? What if people don't talk about? And so nothing ever really gets done except a bunch of PDF decks about ideas that could be, right? Or shitty Cheerios ads, So I feel like stepping into the unknown is it seems like a scary place, but my experience has been it actually moves you into safety, because it moves you into like-minded people who will come to your rescue and help, the way like I was rescued by David Littlejohn. There he is over there. I don't know if you know this guy. He runs Humanot. And so I was asked to come to Chattanooga and be a comedian in residence during the pandemic. And I said to David, what's a comedian in residence? He goes, I have no fucking idea. But we're going to figure it out once you get here. So I Googled where Chattanooga was, and then I moved to Chattanooga. Well, I came down here, it was supposed to be for 1 month, then it became 2 months. And while I was here, David was nice enough to get me a place to stay at the Boat. It's now been bought by the DeFore brothers. Cut that out too. Are they here? No. All right. At a farm? No. Unless they're buying it. Cool. So I was put up in this hotel very nicely by Humanot, and I became friends with the people in the hotel. And I was like, hey, do you want me to kind of like to do a comedy show in your lobby to entertain the people trapped in this hotel? And the manager was like, I don't give a fuck. The world's ending. Do whatever the hell you want, So we started this show, and it wound up kind of taking off. It was called the Carpetbaggers Comedy Night, and it wound up like selling out over and over and over again. And so at one point, I'm like, I guess I'm moving to Chattanooga. So, I sold my place in Brooklyn, and I moved to Chattanooga, and the show has moved around. It went for a while to Grand Falloon, and it became a show. It was called the Carpetbaggers Comedy Night, and it was a chance to bring New Yorkers and Southerners, Northerners and Southerners together through comedy, and it it got a lot of attention here in Chattanooga. So this is why I live here now, and I'm glad to live here, and I hope that you're all glad to live here, and I hope that we can all do cool things in this city, because if we can disrupt New York, we can certainly disrupt Chattanooga. So thanks for listening. Thank you.